Colossus is the most advanced lineup optimizer in daily fantasy sports. Lock and exclude players. Adjust player exposure to reduce risk of injury or poor performance. Customize individual projections or upload your own projections. Generate hundreds of optimal lineups in seconds. Name and save the best lineups. Create winning lineups for the top sites like DraftKings and FanDuel for free at dailyfantasycafe.com.
Hello and welcome to the DraftKings Daily Trot. I'm Big Italy 42 here talking about tonight's slate. And as I often do, I like to call it Clayton Kershaw night with Clayton Kershaw's pitching and things like that. So tonight is Jake Arrieta night. Jake Arrieta has been phenomenal over the past month. Been one of the better pitchers in all of baseball all season long. You look at his numbers over the past month, .23 home runs per 9, ground ball rate almost 59%, strikeout rate almost 28%. Walk rate of barely 3, swing and strike of 12, hard hit rate 18.8, which is just unheard of. So Jake Arrieta, your easy top option, but he's going to be tough to fit. $14,500. If you need to find a cheap guy to pair with him, there are not a lot that I feel even okay about. One guy I'm throwing out there, though, Logan Verrett is the guy that I'm going to be pairing with him if I need to get some big bats in there. Verrett has pitched well. Last 30 days, 25.5% strikeout rates. Just a 3.6% walk rate, swing and strike over 10. Not a guy that's going to throw a ton of pitches or pitch really deep into the game necessarily. Did pitch 8 innings at Colorado in his longest start of the season 4 appearances ago, but still only 93 pitches in that. Last time out against Miami, just 1 earned run in 5 innings, but only 63 pitches. So that's my best cheap option that I can find. As far as other options go at the top, you've got Danny Salazar, $11,100. A nice tournament option for you there for your GPPs. But if you need another safe option up top, you can't quite afford Jake Arrieta, which I'll be trying to do as much as I possibly can. John Lackey, $10,300 against the Reds. It's got to be your best option there. He's a big favorite. Reds have a low team total. Tyson Ross is a fairly safe option. I don't consider him to have a whole lot of upside, though, at 10-6. So probably not a guy that I'll be playing a ton. As far as cheaper guys go, Alex Wood, coming off a great performance against Colorado, $8,000 for him, facing off against Arizona. -170 favorite, a 7.5 run total. He's a fine option for you there. Other cheaper options for you, Gio Gonzalez, $8,800 against Baltimore, striking out the third most of any team in the last 30 days. You got to give him a look there. Lance McCullers is really the last guy I'm looking at, $9,400. He's been okay, not great recently. The Angels have really been struggling, though, so that's a fine option for you there. If you don't want to go with one of these other options, I think he's a nice tournament swerve. Looking over at catcher, you get Kyle Schwarber against Tyler Cravey. Got to be one of your top options here. Of course, this game at home at Wrigley Field. No significant wind blowing out, but Tyler Cravey has faced 79 left-handed batters this year, allowing a 369 WOBA. So Schwarber, great play for you there. Russell Martin against Luis Severino, who struggled against this Blue Jays team last time. Tournament option at $4,200. Outside of that, if Willen Rosario's in the lineup, I'll be playing him at $3,000 against J.A. Happ. Happ has been good, but Rosario throughout his career smashes lefties. Of course, this game in Coors Field. It's only $3K. Great option for you there for cheap. Other guys, Miguel Montero, another lefty against Tyler Cravey. He's in a fine spot as well. Guy I like in tournaments, Wellington Castillo at $3,300 against Alex Wood, the lefty. That's a fine option for you there. You can also throw out Brian McCann against the fly ball pitcher Marco Estrada. McCann has not been particularly great here recently. He's better at home, but obviously Rogers Center, perfectly fine option for you there in your tournaments. And then if you want a cheap guy, he homered last night. Certainly not chasing that, but a cheap guy in Coors Field, he's homered in each of his last 2 games. Tom Murphy is $2,300. So if he's in the lineup, you need a punt. That's a great way to go. First base options, there's a lot. Anthony Rizzo, another lefty against Tyler Cravey. Jose Abreu gets a lefty at Detroit. And Daniel Norris, who has been average at best recently. Of course, Encarnacion at home against Severino. Then I'm going to be trying to scroll down just a little bit for some other options. Miguel Cabrera, $4,600 against the lefty Quintana. That's a great spot for him. Another person who homered last night in a phenomenal spot. Evan Gattis, he's $3,900. Facing off against Hector Santiago, who over the past 30 days has been absolutely awful. He's allowing a 61.2% fly ball rate, 2.61 home runs per 9. Love the Houston righties tonight. Gattis, probably the most power of any of these guys, too, so he's in a phenomenal spot. Another guy you can consider here At first base, Logan Morrison, lefty against Jeremy Guthrie. We know Jeremy Guthrie awful against lefties. Finally back in the rotation. We'll see how long that actually lasts, but he's a guy that I'm certainly not going to be avoiding ever with any left-handed bats. I like a lot of these Mariners bats, actually. I think they're a nice contrarian stack because a lot of other great options. Coors Field game, 385 WOBA on the year so far to lefties, so that's a great spot. And then one more guy, Lucas Duda, lefty against Matt Whistler. Matt Whistler, 463 WOBA allowed this season to lefties. We talk about him every time. A lot of good lefties in this lineup, so that's definitely a spot that I'll be trying to get a lot of exposure to. Second base options, Jose Altuve is my favorite at 4,500 against the lefty. Santiago already mentioned his recent struggles. Altuve's been great recently. Been doing it all, a double, a triple, and a single last night. Been trying to steal bases. He got caught last night. Obviously not a concern there. You've got Jason Kipnis is 4,500. He's a nice tournament option against Urban Santana, who's not been very good recently. Outside of that, Logan Forsythe, Robinson Cano, both guys great spots against Forsythe against lefty, Cano against a guy who's terrible against lefties, and Guthrie. Those are good spots. Of course, Neil Walker at Coors Field, you're considering for $4,100 there as well. Cheaper options, Anthony Rendon at $3,800. Had that big, nice stretch there for a while. He's been okay recently, not great. You're not too worried about that. Eduardo Jimenez, not a guy that I have a whole lot of faith in. And then you got a couple other options here. Mets side, Daniel Murphy, $3,700. You got Chris Coghlan against Tyler Cravey. If you're stacking your Cubs, $3,600. Second base outfield eligibility for you there is a great spot to be looking. And then as far as cheap guys, really nobody that stands out as a great play for cheap. You could look at a guy like Tim Beckham if he's in the lineup. He hits lefties well. That's probably the only cheap way I'll really be going at second base. The last guy I'm going to be mentioning from the Mets, as far as the infield goes here, you got Kelly Johnson to start off third base. He's $3,100, one of my favorite values as a lefty against Whistler. Of course, you've got Nolan Arenado at home, $5,500 for him. I slightly prefer Josh Donaldson because Happ, not a guy I'll be playing, but a guy who has been pretty good recently. Arenado's been hitting righties a lot better, and he just hasn't been in great form. So Donaldson against Severino at Rogers Center. If I'm paying up, that's the way I'm going. You've got Matt Carpenter against Kevius Sampson. He's allowing over 340 WOBA to lefties, so that's a good spot. Of course, Miguel Cabrera, third base eligibility there too. Other guys to consider there, Kyle Seager has been great recently. He's sitting there at $4,400 against Jeremy Guthrie. Last night, 2 doubles, 3 hits, 3 for 5. He's been great at Kansas City. Slight park upgrade for him from Safeco, so that's a good spot for him. Adrian Beltre is a guy I think will fly under the radar against Sean Nolan tonight at 45. He's having a great second half. And then, of course, Evan Longoria, going to be a popular play at just $4K. He's in a great spot. Then you got some more Coors bats. Aramis Ramirez at $4,400. He's your next option there. Shortstops, Carlos Correa is going to be my top option, as he is pretty much every night, especially against a lefty. Flyball lefty in Santiago, who I already mentioned, had a huge game last night. Expect more of the same from him tonight. Francisco Lindor is another guy who's been phenomenal in the second half. He's at $4,500. He's a nice swerve off Correa in your tournaments with maybe not quite the upside, but very, very similar, if not. And then I'm looking for cheaper guys here. You've got Tyler Saladino coming in at $3,200. He's a decent value against the lefty and Norris. You've got a few more guys. Andres Blanco is $2,300 if he's in against Tom Kohler, who's not terrible against lefties, but at $2,300, he's a nice value there. And then one more guy for really cheap, Christian Adams, $2,000. If he's in the lineup for the Rockies, nice bare minimum punt for you there. Outfield options, you got to love Bryce Harper against Ubaldo Jimenez. He's $6,000, but he's been on a hell of a tear recently. Andrew McCutchen, Starling Marte especially coming off a 29-point performance last night. He's homered in back-to-back games. He's at Coors Field. Great spot for him. Bautista at home against Severino is another guy to look at there. Righties against Jose Quintana. You got JD Martinez and Rajai Davis, both guys in pretty good spots there. I like Mookie Betts a lot against Matt Moore, who's been giving up a ton of hard contact. Cheaper guys, Danny Valencia. I saved him for the outfield because I got a lot of third base options I like, but as you know, smashes left-handed pitching. You get Gregory Polanco in there at Coors Field as well. GPP only option for me there. Then Curtis Granderson, one of my favorite outfield plays against Matt Whistler. He's $4,200. Great play there. Adam Jones, if he's back in the lineup, $4,100. He gets a lefty. Same goes for his teammate, $3,300 Steve Pearce. Cheaper guys, a little bit cheaper, you should say. Dexter Fowler at $4,200. Another one of those Cubs bats. It's just in a phenomenal spot. Really cheap guy, if you're not playing Gio Gonzalez, $2,600 Nolan Remold is in a fine spot. Should be leading off once again, or at least batting near the top. And then Jake Smolinski is a guy who's been hitting lefties. He's 2,300. Another punt for you there. He's on a nice stretch right now. Homers in 2 of his last 4 games. And all the way down here at the bottom, you're looking for some absolute minimum plays. There's really not a whole lot that stands out for me here. But at $2,000, you're going to be looking for some cheap pieces of Coors Field. Rafael Yanoa came in and pinch hit last night. If for some reason he's in the lineup, or Kyle Parker, both those guys at 2K, they're okay options, but not guys that you feel great about. You're looking for your platoon guy, Scott Van Slyke at $2,700 against the lefty, and Robbie Ray is a great spot there. Ben Revere's a guy you like, but $4,100, I mean, you say GPP option, but I don't even know that he has the upside at $4,100 to play him there. I'd rather target a power guy around that same price. So that's going to wrap things up. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Lots of great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.